"You're always complaining about being cold," my mother-in-law remarked, her tongue tinged with irritation. "So I went ahead and set up a bonfire in the yard for you. Go on, warm yourself up out there before you turn into an icicle." She gestured towards the backyard, visible through the window. Curious, I followed her pointing finger, only to be met with a sight that filled me with despair. My name is Aurora. I'm 28 years old, a working housewife who juggles part-time shifts at a nearby supermarket. My husband, Harlan, is 30, 2 years my senior, and works in an office. Together, we have a 1-year-old son named David. Around a year before David was born, we decided to move in with Harlan's family. With his father's passing before our marriage and his mother living alone, it made sense financially to share a home and save money for our child. However, since then, the subtle jabs from my mother-in-law have only increased. After giving birth, I took a step back from my job to focus on David. My mother-in-law wasn't pleased. "I can take care of David. Why don't you work outside?" she'd say, implying it was the norm for a daughter-in-law to work when living together. She labeled me lazy for staying home, adding insult to injury by criticizing my weight gain post-childbirth and accusing me of laziness despite feeling unwell. I resumed work, but I chose part-time hours to be with David. Yet my mother-in-law wasn't satisfied. "Can't you work more?" she'd demand. I could, but David was still young, and I yearned for more time with him. However, expressing this only earned me more disdain. "Oh, are you implying dissatisfaction with my care? I raised Harlan. I can raise a child better than you who felt ill right after childbirth. Just work longer hours," she'd retort. I felt overwhelmed by her attitude, so I confided in Harlan, hoping for support. I explained that she wanted me to work more, but I wanted to sacrifice time with David. "Can you talk to her?" Disappointingly, Harlan sided with his mother. "Mom knows best about raising kids. You're only working part-time, right? We're here to save money, so just do as she says. Besides, you haven't lost your post-pregnancy weight," he scoffed, echoing my mother-in-law's criticisms and urging me to work harder. One day, my mother-in-law decided to take matters into her own hands by calling my workplace and persuading them to increase my hours. Her connection with the part-time leader at the supermarket ensured my compliance. Unable to oppose this decision, I found myself juggling longer shifts alongside the already burdensome household chores. I barely had a moment for David amidst the relentless demands. "Leave David to me," my mother-in-law would insist. "You focus on work and in-house chores. And mind you, you haven't shed any weight yet, have you?" "It's rather unsightly," she remarked, her criticisms cutting deep. Yet, when David needed attention or made a mess, suddenly I was expected to intervene promptly. "You're his mother, handle it. Can't you discipline him properly?" she'd scold, adding another layer of pressure. One particularly frustrating day, as I diligently cleaned the yard per my mother-in-law's instructions, Harlan's criticism stung. "Why are you so dirty? Don't come in the house like that," he chided, oblivious to my efforts. Feeling unjustly attacked, I snapped back, airing my grievances about the unequal distribution of household responsibilities. His reaction was dismissive, directing me to another room without so much as a glance. Fed up with the situation, I made a decision. Despite most of my salary going towards household expenses, I began documenting my mother-in-law and Harlan's behavior. I recorded their words on my phone and meticulously chronicled daily events in a diary. It was a step towards reclaiming my voice and asserting my worth. On a chilly winter day, I gathered the courage to ask Harlan for some money to invest in winter clothes. "Why do you need new ones?" he retorted, dismissing my request. "You earn so little yet desire luxuries. Your old ones should suffice. Besides, they don't fit anymore," he added, not hesitating to critique my weight gain. With a begrudging gesture, he tossed a $1.50 bill my way. "That should cover a few items," he remarked brusquely. Though I knew $1.50 wouldn't stretch far, I accepted it gratefully, silently plotting my exit from Harlan's family home. On my way back from work, I stopped by a store and purchased a much-needed down jacket, a small step toward reclaiming some sense of comfort and security. However, my relief was short-lived. The following day, to my dismay, my new down jacket was nowhere to be found. Confused and frustrated, I approached my mother-in-law, who lounged leisurely in the living room. "Have you seen my down jacket?" I inquired. Her response left me speechless. "Oh, I assumed you didn't need it anymore, so I got rid of it," she remarked casually. "What? I just bought it yesterday," I exclaimed incredulously. Her nonchalant reply only added insult to injury. "Did you? I must have placed it in the shed outside. Why don't you go and check?" Hastily, I dashed to the shed, my heart sinking as I found my new jacket discarded amidst the refuse. Despite the biting cold, I attempted to salvage it, but the stench lingered stubbornly. Knowing that burning it indoors would only invite more complaints from my mother-in-law and Harlan, I resolved to hand-wash it in the dead of night, hoping to conceal the evidence of its mishap. The next day brought another devastating discovery. Returning home from work, I noticed an eerie emptiness in my bedroom. All the drawers on the shelf that housed my clothes were devoid of their contents. My wardrobe had been stripped bare. Rushing to confront my mother-in-law, I demanded answers. "Where are my clothes?" I implored. Her response hit me like a blow. "You bought new ones, didn't you? So I repurposed your old, dirty clothes into rags for cleaning. Now you can contribute to the household chores," she retorted callously. My heart sank further as I opened the cleaning supplies, confirming her words. There, amidst the cleaning supplies, lay rags fashioned from my discarded garments. And as if her cruelty knew no bounds, I noticed my jacket, which had been left out to dry on the balcony, was now missing. "You're always complaining about being cold," my mother-in-law interjected, her tone laced with false concern. "So I took the liberty of lighting a bonfire for you in the yard." With a slight, insincere smile, she motioned towards the garden outside my window, where flames danced in the fire pit. Peering outside, I watched in disbelief as shreds of my jacket fluttered in the wind. "You burned my clothes. How am I supposed to survive this winter?" I protested, my voice trembling with outrage. But my mother-in-law remained indifferent to my distress. "You're chubby, so you'll be fine," she quipped callously before sauntering away, a smirk playing on her lips. I was left speechless, grappling with a mixture of fury and despair. With trembling hands, I hastily gathered my essentials. My diary, phone, and precious David, wrapped snugly in my only remaining coat. Ignoring the biting cold, I fled from Harlan's house, clad only in a thin t-shirt as heavy snowflakes cascaded around me. Panic surged through me as I realized the gravity of my situation. Thankfully, a compassionate neighbor who had always harbored suspicions about my strained relationship with my mother-in-law came to my aid. Despite the tension between them, this neighbor had remained vigilant, concerned for my well-being since the day I moved in with Harlan's family, recognizing the signs of distress. They offered me refuge and swiftly transported me to my parents' home an hour away. Upon my arrival, my mother's eyes widened in alarm at the sight of my scanty attire. "Why are you dressed like that? Are you feeling unwell? Is it too warm in the car?" she fretted, her concern palpable. Forced to flee Harlan's household, I found myself in a dire situation. My clothes were reduced to rags, and my new jacket was consumed by flames. All along, I had been meticulously gathering evidence for what I hoped would be a favorable divorce, but the threat to my safety became too palpable to ignore. With David, soundly wrapped in a coat, mercifully asleep, I fled, tears of relief streaming down my face at the thought that my mother-in-law had unwrapped him from my arms. My mother, recognizing the urgency of my plight, sprang into action, rallying support. She swiftly reached out to my father and another individual whose intervention would prove crucial in the days to come. The following day brought a glimmer of hope in the form of unexpected aid. Responding to my mother's urgent call, my father-in-law's mother, whom we affectionately referred to as Grandma, arrived at our doorstep. As it turned out, my father and Harlan's late father had shared a deep bond, and Grandma, despite the passing years, had maintained ties with my family. Our connection through these familial bonds had initially brought Harlan and me together, forging the path to our marriage. Before our union, Auntie, Grandma's daughter, and Harlan's mother had exuded warmth and kindness towards my parents. However, the relentless pressure and harassment from Harlan's mother gradually tainted Harlan's demeanor, transforming his once amiable nature into cold indifference towards me. As I laid out the evidence before Grandma, her fury mirrored that of my parents. Without hesitation, she sprang into action, swiftly contacting a lawyer to initiate divorce proceedings. In a matter of days, arrangements were made, and we, accompanied by my parents and Grandma, embarked on a visit to Harlan's family home, leaving David in the capable care of my nearby sister. Upon our arrival, my mother-in-law's reaction was predictably hostile. "Where's David? You kidnappers!" she bellowed as she stormed out of the house. However, Grandma, undeterred, stepped forward to challenge her accusation. "Who are you calling the kidnapper, you money grubber?" she retorted, her voice dripping with disdain. Harlan, apparently having taken time off work for the occasion, joined us as we gathered to discuss the impending divorce, David's custody, and the fate of the family property. As tension simmered, the lawyer laid out the plan. "We're here to address Aurora and Harlan's divorce, determine custody arrangements for David, and discuss the sale of this property," he announced solemnly. Harlan scoffed at the notion of selling the property. "Property? What do you mean by selling the land? It's Dad's ancestral home and Mom inherited it. You can't just sell it," he interjected derisively. The lawyer, however, remained unfazed, presenting a document outlining the overdue land rent payments spanning several years since Harlan's father's passing. While the building may be under Harlan's mother's ownership, the land itself belongs to Harlan's father's family, the lawyer explained calmly. "We've been lenient regarding the unpaid land rent, but now it's time to settle the debt and proceed with the sale." The document detailed the accumulated rent for the land over several years following the passing of my father-in-law. As my mother-in-law scanned the figures, a look of shock crossed her face. How can we pay this all of a sudden?" she exclaimed in disbelief. Grandma swiftly silenced her with a stern, quiet rebuke before addressing the issue at hand. "We've been sending you notifications every month. You chose to ignore them," she rebuked. "And more importantly, you need to make amends for how you've treated Aurora." Unmoved, my mother-in-law attempted to deflect the blame. "Aurora's accusations, she's just my daughter-in-law. Why should it concern anyone else?" she argued defiantly. "She's probably making things up. She's always been deceitful, finding excuses to avoid chores and work. I've never lied simply because you believe I'm overweight," I asserted firmly, my voice trembling with suppressed anger. "You've burdened me with endless chores, robbing me of precious time with my child. Do you have any idea how difficult it was to be instructed to brave the winter cold in nothing but a t-shirt? You've been spreading these falsehoods to anyone who will listen, always eager to shirk responsibility," my mother-in-law retorted with a smug grin. However, her confidence waned when I played back the recorded snippets of her and Harlan's snide comments from my phone. "That's fabricated," she exclaimed, her facade faltering in a moment of frustration and desperation. I dashed to the closet, snatching up a rag crafted from my discarded clothes and slamming it onto the table. "How do you explain this? My clothes reduced to rags just as captured in the recording." "Enough, Aurora. Perhaps Mom's actions were a tad extreme, but let's not overlook the fact that your lack of effort only fueled her frustration," Harlan interjected, his tongue laced with condescension before pointing fingers. "Take a moment to reflect on your actions. Excuse me, are you blind? Since moving here, I've shed at least 22 pounds, he continued defensively. The reason my clothes don't fit isn't because I've gained weight, but because I've lost it so rapidly. Everyone except you and Mom is concerned about how thin I've become." Harlan's words seemed to dawn on him as he acknowledged the extent of my weight loss. "I deeply regret entrusting Aurora to your care," my father chimed in, his voice tight with restrained anger. Clenching his fists on his lap, he fixed a steely gaze on Harlan and the others. "But I've been the primary caregiver for David." Harlan persisted, his determination evident. "Aurora simply isn't equipped to handle him. We're prepared to take this to court to ensure we retain custody of David." "Indeed, courts typically lean towards the mother's favor," the lawyer interjected calmly, his tongue carrying an air of authority. "But consider this. Would they entrust David to individuals who failed to even notice Aurora's dramatic weight loss? Can you afford the expenses associated with hiring a lawyer and covering court fees? Furthermore, I will also be pursuing claims for alimony and land rent for this property." The gravity of the situation seemed to dawn on my mother-in-law. "This is so unjust," she muttered, her voice trembling with frustration. "Who's being unjust here?" my father countered, his tone firm. "Both of you have tormented Aurora and even attempted to separate her from David. Where did the money Aurora earned go? Why did she flee to her parents' home in nothing but a t-shirt carrying David through a snowstorm?" My usually reticent mother-in-law's facade crumbled as she began to weep, casting blame on my mother-in-law. "I'm truly sorry. We will make amends for spoiling David and causing Aurora such anguish," Grandma spoke up, addressing us directly before signaling to the lawyer. "Simply settle your debts and we sever all direct ties with you and inform our relatives," I asserted firmly. Following that resolution, I tendered my resignation from the part-time position, boldly informing headquarters of my mother-in-law's meddling. The company expressed regret and assured me of measures to prevent such power imbalances among part-timers. While no repercussions were reported for the individual acquainted with my mother-in-law, assurances were made regarding future safeguards. In the ensuing weeks, my divorce from Harlan reached its conclusion, securing custody of David and receiving a fair amount of child support. I navigated the challenges with resolve. Harlan's financial strain was palpable, particularly as he assumed responsibility for the outstanding land rent. Grandma's lighthearted jests about the house's fate hinted at the irony of the situation. Transitioning to a new phase of life, I relished the opportunity to reside with my parents, cherishing the precious moments spent with David. With plans to eventually join my father's company, I utilized the divorce settlement to rejuvenate my wardrobe, reveling in the joy of coordinating outfits with David. As I looked toward the future, I eagerly anticipated the prospect of devoting even more time to my son. Let's conclude the story shortly. Life, while still challenging, became a tapestry of resilience and newfound freedom. David, my precious son, thrived in the loving embrace of my parents, his laughter echoing through the house. I found solace in my work, the familiar rhythm of the supermarket a comforting backdrop to my days. My father's company offered a promising future, a path paved with stability and opportunity. The scars of the past, though still present, faded with each passing day. I learned to trust my instincts, to prioritize my well-being and that of my child. The bonfire, a symbol of my mother-in-law's cruelty, became a distant memory, replaced by the warmth of family and the unwavering support of my parents. The divorce, a painful chapter, ultimately brought a sense of liberation. I was no longer bound by the toxic dynamics of Harlan's family, free to forge my own path, a path filled with hope and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. And so, the story of Aurora, a young woman who dared to break free from the shackles of a manipulative family, became a testament to the enduring power of love, courage, and the unwavering spirit of a mother protecting her child. After experiencing the full journey of our story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching and see you in the next story.